All right, Mile High Hoops is back for another video for you to listen to while you're taking a poop or buying groceries. We're talking about contract extensions for 2022, 2023, and we'll get right into it after you like, comment, and subscribe. So we're going to start with the Warriors because there's a lot going on here. So they just recently re-signed Andrew Wiggins for a 4-year, $109 million extension, which ties him down for 5 years, worth $143. And with that being said, I mean, Wiggins is just like the pinnacle role player for them. I think that there's nothing wrong with this contract. It's going to be very movable in the future if that needs to happen, especially with the cap going up so much that people are going to be worth $60 million a year at some point. Nothing wrong with that here. And then they also just re-signed Jordan Poole for a 4-year, $140 million extension. And again, I think that's good value at this point with how high the cap is going to be. And so now they have these two guys locked in for a long time, as well as Steph. And where it gets really interesting is Draymond and Klay Thompson. Ugh. And why this gets so interesting is because after this next season, the Warriors will be pretty loaded up on money. Klay Thompson will be expiring in 2023, 2024, and Draymond has a team option, or a player option, And most of everyone is thinking that Draymond's going to decline that, and everyone's really split on whether or not he's going to sign a team-friendly deal or just try to get as much money as possible. And the Warriors won't be able to give him money at that point. Based on some really simple math, since the exact breakdown of these contracts hasn't been released yet, they'll be about at $222 million that year, which is well above the hard cap. The cap line right now, or the tax spending line, is $156 million for 2022. But it will go up for the 2023-2024 season. But it just makes things really interesting because at that point, Klay will be 34, and I don't know how much he'll want to take money-wise. Draymond will also be 34, and it just leaves kind of a lot of questions because if they want to extend them to a lot of money, that makes it so Wiseman wouldn't be able to get a big extension, or it'd make it a little bit more difficult. And then Moody and Kuminga will be coming up in that 2025-2026 season, so that makes things really, really questionable. That they're in a pickle, but I mean they've got guys signed long term, and it's just up to vets taking less money at this point. Now to the other big one so far. Tyler Hero signed a 4-year, $130 million contract extension. It's actually $120 guaranteed, but then there's incentives for him to get to $130. So just an extra $10 million sitting there. I don't think this deal is too expensive for Tyler, especially because if you take it as a percentage of the whole cap, he's making $40 or $30 million a year, and that's not too crazy as far as the cap goes. I mean, that's at this point 25% ish. I don't know the math off the top of my head. But, I mean, Tyler does a lot for this team as far as offense goes. Defensively, he really needs to improve there for this contract to really be worth as much as it is, unless he becomes just some generational scorer, which I don't think anybody thinks he's going to do that. But I think he is very valuable to the Heat, and losing him for nothing is less than valuable. And I'm always all for re-signing these younger guys, especially when the deal isn't crazy high, just because, I mean, it gives you options later in the future. It gives you the ability to move them if you really want to, and some other team that's rebuilding might see a younger guy on a long contract and find value in that. Now, the one issue I do have with the Heat right now is that their roster is crazy expensive and old at this point too. We don't really know what we're going to get out of Kyle Lowry. I mean, he's 36 right now, and he's signed for 2 more years at almost $30 million a year. And then they've got Jimmy Butler locked in through 2025, 2026. Same with Bam. Same with Duncan Robinson. I mean, that last year is not guaranteed, but all the rest of them are. And, I think they're just pretty maxed out on what they can do. I mean, unless they start moving guys, they have what they have, and they're going to have to live with that because they don't have a lot of picks either. But I mean, they've got Bam and Tyler locked in, which is good for them. But the question mark surrounding Kyle Lowry and his age and Jimmy Butler's age is a little unnerving. I mean, I think Jimmy Butler is going to be good for a while longer, but there's just some questions here. Now, I think the most interesting one is Kevin Porter Jr.'s extension. It's worth $82.5 million for 4 years. And Woj just broke this morning, but there's some weird structures going on in their deal where the first season is guaranteed, and then the rest of them, apparently, and I quote, there is several mechanisms to fully guarantee. And so I think that this is really smart out of the Rockets. I mean, they have all the control, all the upside, and it's really kind of that thing that lights a fire underneath a guy to make him want to improve. And for a guy like Kevin Porter Jr. that was almost out of the league after throwing a bowl of soup or whatever it was at a Cavaliers coach, I think that this is a perfect deal for them. I mean, they've locked in their backcourt, and I mean, Kevin Porter's got a huge upside as far as offense goes, and with a young team like this, I mean, why not lock in your younger guys, and especially while protecting yourself? I think that this is a perfect deal for them. All right, now for some quick hitters. Nasir Little, he just signed a 4-year, $28 million extension. And again, Nasir's just a good 3-and-D wing for the Blazers. I mean, he's a longer defender, and I don't see any harm here for extending a guy at a value that is about the mid-level. And for 4 years, I think that, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong here. I think every year we try to look at contracts and decide which one was terrible. And when you see one like this, it's just, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's as safe as it gets, and Nasir's a good player and has all the potential to become a player that's worth more than his contract, I believe. And quite a bit earlier, the Pelicans extended C.J. McCollum through 2025-2026 for $64 million. And then they also extended Larry Nance for 2 more years for $21.6 million. And again, I mean, CJ is going to continue to be a good scorer, a good distributor, and kind of the adult in the room for this team. And Larry Nance is just a solid power forward wing type guy that gives them options as like a small ball 5 if they want to do that. And I think the biggest thing here is that they've locked in their roster to push for a championship over the next few years. They'll have CJ locked in till 2026. Brandon Ingram will be locked in till 2025. Valanciunas until 2024, which he'll need an extension by then. Zion's locked in until 2028. And I think that these deals just go to show kind of who they care about here. And because Jackson Hayes didn't sign an extension, he's on a team option still. And I think this gives them options to continue to pursue different deals as their championship roster kind of starts to develop and fill out a little bit more. They've got their new rookie and Trey Murphy, which will be through 2025. The only guy that I see is mega important to re-sign the next 2 years is Herb Jones. And other than that, I mean, they're set. I think that this roster, since David Griffin has taken over, has been expertly managed at this point. Now, the only contract that I don't really like too much is Steven Adams' extension. It was 2 years and $25.2 million, which I guess isn't really all that much money in the grand scheme for an NBA team. I think it's just kind of showing that the Grizzlies don't really have any other options at center. And Steven is very solid, but I always look back to the Steven Adams Valanciunas swap and think that the Grizzlies would be so much better off if they never did that. And I think Steven is just, he's as solid as it gets as a center. I mean, he's not ever going to be all-star level, and he's not going to be kind of what he used to be. I mean, he's just a big body that sets massive screens and gets a lot of rebounds and can pass okay. He doesn't space the floor at all, but I think that's kind of okay for this team at this point. They've got a lot of other shooters. And then they also re-signed Brandon Clark, and that was for 4 years, $52 million. I think that one's a little bit better and a little bit more, it makes a little bit more sense. So, I mean, Brandon Clark's basically going to be their bench scorer for them at this point. He just comes in and makes floaters from all over the place, and kind of like the Pelicans, they're just kind of locked in to try to make a push to win a championship. And the only real guy that I see at this point that they need to re-sign is Dylan Brooks. Does need an extension if they want to keep him. Me as a known Dylan Brooks hater thinks that they need to trade him right now. But Desmond Bane, after 2023-2024, will be off of his rookie deal. And I believe in between 2022-2023 and then the 2023-2024 season, they can extend him for a rookie extension, and I would bet that he's going to get somewhere in that ballpark of the Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero type of extension, because he just does so much for this team. I mean, he's just such a strong defender and can shoot the ball like crazy. And so I kind of think that's the pathway for them, and they also have options to trade guys and do what they'd like with this roster if things don't really work out. All right, and with all that being said, we do have the NBA season starting tomorrow, so I apologize for the lack of the rest of the season previews. They just got so boring to make, and I couldn't keep doing it. But I will be doing kind of videos on talking points as the season kind of progresses, and I want to be trying to do 3 or 4 videos a week, so stick around for that. And if you're interested in that, please like, comment, and especially subscribe. And if you hit that little bell, you'll be notified when I upload. So again, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.